Well, welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. It's wonderful to have all of you. We're going to start talking about some 2023 predictions. I'm going to start really high level with general budgeting, IT, and then we'll dive in deep to talk more about integration predictions, which we've done a little bit on a podcast. So where I want to start is that, overall, we're seeing that IT budgets aren't slowing down. IT spend will probably go up in the coming years. But as we see the economy doing a variety of things where companies like Twitter and Facebook and Amazon, big behemoth companies, are doing these layoffs, it's hard to balance hearing that there's going to be spend in technology resources with, hey, these companies are doing layoffs. Rodrigo, I'm curious from your perspective, CEO, out fundraising, what are you seeing? What are some of the patterns that you're hearing about with whether it's the economy or IT spend overall?
Sometimes I feel a little bit odd about talking about IT spending, because when we're talking about digital transformation, we're talking about business transformation overall. If you see how much are we as a company, as Digibee, is spending just with IT, I would say it's nothing compared with the development of our platform. And this is absolutely technology development. So how much are we spending on that? But if you're talking about corporates and enterprise IT departments, I see them with a leading role on digital transformation efforts. So even though we see pockets of technology through the business areas, the IT department is still the one that knows how to deal with the technology itself, right? So I really don't foresee anyone reducing budget for IT spending, since the business these days are so intercorrelated with the technology itself, that would say it would be really hard for any company still keep competing in the market while reducing technology or IT spend.
I think it's an interesting point because even in our own business or other businesses, right? Take Twitter, take Stripe. I mean, there's dozens of companies who recently have had this layoff happen. What we're finding is that they're maybe optimizing their resources, but that the technologies that they rely on and the technologies that are providing value, if anything, what we're hearing and seeing is that companies are over-investing in some of those areas. So they're saying, yeah, I might have to, modify my budget, but the things that I love are the things that I'm going to keep. I'm curious from your perspective, Peter, given that you manage all of these types of resources, are you feeling the same thing? I mean, are you leaning in toward the products that you love and maybe walking away from the products that you don't?
Yeah, and I think also back to Rodrigo's point, right? Spending, because we need to compete, right? That's what the companies are doing, and we need to be more effective, and especially in downturns, that's what we look for. Doesn't necessarily mean we're spending less. It probably means we're spending more intelligently. So if in the past there was more money, maybe we wouldn't look into specific areas. Now we are, right? And talking about that and thinking about trends, especially in software development, I believe that's exactly where companies will start to look into, to how to organize themselves better in order to really deliver more value quicker, right? To what the market is saying, right, is actually accelerate the flow of change. Because if you think about it, right, there's company A competing with company B, right? If I'm faster to deliver innovation, a new feature, a new capability, if I'm faster connecting with a new partner that can augment my business reach, that's competition. That is exactly what I should be doing as a company, right? So companies should look for that acceleration. How do I accelerate the flow of change? How do I make more things? How do I make my users more capable? How do I make my salespeople more knowledgeable on things so they can sell more? And how do you accelerate flow of change? That's very hard, especially in legacy, or not legacy, but organizations that have been built throughout the years that have accumulated technical debt on top of layer on top of layer. How do you accelerate flow of change without breaking things, without being blocked, right? So one trend that I'm closely watching is organizations reorganize themselves in layers that help people really focus on the things they should do. So you have people focused on a specific domain, let them do that and take away from them all the other burden that they don't need to care about. So think about cloud, for example, in the past, right? When we introduced cloud. Before cloud, we needed to deal with data centers, installing machines, preparing all those things. So if I wanted to do a project, I needed to wait 6-9 months to have all those machines. Cloud was introduced as a platform. And then now with the push of a button, I have all the machines I want and I can do my project. Think about all the other situations inside organizations where this is happening, where I'm trying to do something and I have a block and I have a dependency and I cannot move forward because of all the complexity that is going on in the organization. So one trend that I think companies will introduce even more, especially in software development within technical and more technical organizations now, is this platform thinking. How do I build these internal platforms that help others achieve their jobs, right? And that's particularly interesting for me because Digibee is that platform. We are taking the integration burden from the hands of the people doing their jobs so they don't need to think about that. That's already solved, right? Now, looking on a more broader spectrum, right? There are many other platforms that need to be developed. Maybe I'm a bank and I have my old way of storing customer information, but every single area of the bank needs customer information. This is an internal platform that needs to be curated, that needs to be evolved, that needs to be thought as a product so other people can just use it. So that trend is very interesting, and we are starting to see that a lot in organizations. For people that want to really go deeper on this, team topologies concept, and you guys know I'm a big fan of it, talks a lot about that. Talks a lot about restructuring your teams for that fast flow of change that everybody wants to achieve.
I love that. And so we will come back to that. Tam, I'm sure you have something to add, but I want to just talk about one quick topic that wasn't in our agenda, but I'm curious what Peter and Rodrigo think about it, which is talent. 12 months ago, 24 months ago, we were talking about the, a huge wave of change. Employees saying, hey, I expect something different out of my company. I've spent the last 2 years at home. I need a change of scenery, a change of pace, whatever. And so we saw this flood to the market of candidates where really they had their pick of opportunities. Now shift that with where we are today, where all of a sudden we have very few opportunities in the market because, right, budget is being constricted, economies are under pressure. And now I saw a headline the other day that talked about the shift back to the employer, that the hiring process is now back in the employer. We talked about the talent shortfall of really expert resources that can be dedicated toward integration or particular specialties and why that's such a challenge and why our technology offers such a unique benefit. But from the perspective of Peter and Rodrigo, anything to say about where you think that hearing that shift from, hey, there were, candidates had their pick of the litter to now the employer is more in control of hiring. Does that flag anything? Is that a trend that you see coming into the market? And then we'll shift back to integration specifically, but I'm curious hiring and the shift from, again, that large pool of candidates being now in control of the employer is mattering at all. So Rodrigo, I'll start with you and then move to Peter.
No, I think this is super connected with this all this efficiency that companies are pursuing right now. So even when you see, the big techs doing layoffs, or even Elon Musk going out and say, no, we just have the best guys all of the world, the best guys ever. So you can see that shift in the employment space. So, but when people start going after efficiency, so it's really hard to go after efficiency when the environment is booming. It's really hard. So the companies are growing. So to solve problems, you just go in there and add people, even though they're not the right ones to do it, because everything is booming. It doesn't matter. If I don't need efficiency. I don't need a problem to be solved just with one person. Maybe if I have 3 or 4 or 5, I can do that as well, no matter what it costs. And now it's different. And automation has a great play in this environment where, okay, we're starting replacing manual work with automated machines or automated software, and in the pursuit of this efficiency that we see.
Peter, anything to add on hiring or people or expertise?
Yeah, I think it must be seen as spectrum, right? And you go from the premium jobs all the way to the jobs that unfortunately can be replaced, right? And of course, the premium jobs on an economy that needs people focused, doing more stuff and things that can differentiate you, those people will still select where they want to work, right? AI, data science, DevOps, modern or cloud operations. These guys can work anywhere they want, right? If they have the right knowledge and information, right? But if you look at the spectrum, right, and going back to what Rodrigo said, which I agree very much, we are on efficiency is a priority now. So if we're focusing on that, what is going to happen inside these organizations? Organizations that were throwing people everywhere, building these huge behemoths of people that now Elon Musk cut half and it's still up and running. Yes, we know that is ridiculous. There is a lot of complexity on how he did it, and that's his style. But even though it's still running, right? So when we start doing that efficiency play, people that didn't differentiate in their careers, that didn't find the necessary or the right place to be where they can still be competitive, they can still be needed by organizations, they will struggle, right? Automation will play, and this is my personal opinion, right? Looking at how the world is evolving. And now we're talking about automation. Now we're talking about AI helping us make decisions. Where will these people that were there taking those decisions, what they are going to do if we're now automating them out with technology? That is even a big government discussion, social discussion that we'll need to have. And of course, we're moving away from technology and going to workers, builders, accountants, and many other careers that will struggle because we will be able to do much more and much more automated, right?
So the one I'll say in summary for those listening, and as we think about topics, I think there's 2 trends that I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I want to start getting into integration. But for my memory, as I go back and listen, is I think there's hiring and sort of employee management that's happening. But there's also the reason that that's happening is because when you're in an economic downturn, or maybe that's forecasted, companies start to feel that pressure. And so the spending gets either more controlled or those cycles take longer. And so what we're seeing at Digibee as we think about SaaS and purchase cycles is companies are getting more efficient, and they're looking toward platforms that can enable automation and reduce the reliance on specialized staffing. And because of that, a sales cycle that maybe was predicted to be 2 to 4 months is now extending to 3 to 6 months, or potentially even longer. Before we shift to integration, Tam, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
My perspective on that from the talent side, you kind of have to look at this from a historical perspective. There's been 3 industrial revolutions. Your parents, everybody's parents kind of went, or grandparents went through the industrial kind of like revolution where it was all about survivability. You go out and get a job because you need to survive, right? And the employer has all the power there. Then we go into the kind of next phase that probably our parents went through, where it was more about building a better quality of life, trying to get ahead, right? In that way, digging your way out, building something bigger for a brighter future. But a lot of that was ushered in by the start of technology, but there's kind of that third phase. We're now in this third revolution where it's about social revolution, where quality of life of employees is the most important piece, and that they're building something that's bigger than themselves. When you look at the current generations that are entering in the workforce, you can give them a lot of money, but a lot of times they don't care. They want to be able to work remotely from the van that they're in. They want to build something that is bigger than themselves. They want to be a part of something that's contributing to a greater good. And I think that as you start thinking about automations and technology on how they usher these in, things that weren't possible before from a quality of life perspective are now possible. Things that weren't possible, like remote work, are now something that is feasible. And so if you start thinking about this kind of social revolution that we're in, that's being driven a lot by technology and these capabilities, the mundane tasks that really decrease the value or the feeling that you get when you're actually doing work, those are things that just people aren't going to stick around for. So by providing a better quality of work, more meaningful work, and allowing people to feel like they're contributing more on higher value tasks, that's how you're going to keep and maintain the top talent. Because even the worst talent is going to leave if their quality of life isn't what they desire out of it. And so the way that I see it is that technologies like Digibee, like integrations, can help take away a lot of those mundane automatable tasks so that people actually enjoy what they're doing, and they can focus on things that they believe is driving a true impact to give them a self of belonging.
All right, so let's shift to integration and predictions that we have for 2023. I think I'm going to start with Peter, with you for a second, for like where we've been and where you think we're going. If you look back on the last 2 to 4 years on integration and what it meant, and looking forward to not only next year, but maybe even a little further out, what do you take from the past that's paving the way for the future, and what do you see? So Peter, we'll start with you and then we'll jump to Tam.
Good. I think if we look at the timelines here, right? This trend, especially the modern integration trend, is pretty new, right? So if you think about the iPaaS, then iPaaS, 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe a little bit more, right? The hyper automation trend, even robotic process automation that came to really accelerate the digital transformation organizations that were struggling with the rigid systems they had. These are recent trends. So we are facing that wave. We are surfing that wave, right? Digibee did that, right? So we took that wave back in 2017, and we built a platform with some ideas in mind and applying them and having success with the customers and giving and receiving back that go ahead, yeah, we are seeing value, so on and so forth, right? But that said, this is a market in evolution, and things start to get better shape, right? So in one hand, that's the way I see, right? So in one hand, you have really the approach where we have these theses, these hypotheses, where we can empower non-technical people to build with nice interfaces, no code, low code based interfaces. They can build new things. That can be integrations, but let's not stay there. That could be apps, for example. That could be complex workflows, for example. We are empowering these people to do more without needing to go back to the typical technical person that would solve you that problem. And that is a very interesting trend. And we are seeing a lot of success there. There's a lot of momentum happening there. And we start to realize how far it can go, because people that were in the IT industry, like we were, right? We have seen these trends in the past. Yeah, of course, this is a new moment. We have new technologies, but it's always like that. We are always trying to get rid of IT, right? Because IT is complex. How far it will go, that's a pretty big question. And that question connects back to, you cannot deliver on the full promise of enabling these people while you don't reorganize your company in a structure that can be easily consumed by these people, with APIs, with better interfaces, with your legacy systems being improved to a point that they can be easily reused. If you're not doing that, you're just patching the outside. Your core is still broken. So our thesis here, my thesis, and I know we've been discussing this a lot, is those people still need help. We still need to work with the more IT, and I know this is blurred now, but the more IT, the more technical people, the people building these platforms, we need to work with them so they can transform the organizations to something more flexible, more adaptable, more API-based. So then we can deliver on the full promise of, yes, now it's easy to understand. Our organization is a platform. It's a platform that we can recombine. And then that promise will probably be delivered. So this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I think we'll see that shifting, not shifting, but getting shape. People will start to realize those differences.
So if you were to summarize that, what you're saying is that historically it was, hey, they had all these platforms, they were using them. Looking forward next year and beyond, we think that organizations are going to self-organize themselves like a platform to utilize the tools that are available to them and pick and choose which ones make sense for their business to some extent.
Or to be more prepared, right? To whatever comes next. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
But if they're not just patching the outside, that's my main point, without shaking their whole own ground, that promise will only go that far, right?
If you look at Moore's law, which is a kind of technical computer science term around the rate of change with technology, that's accelerating rapidly. And you see how AI is pushing things like the Turing test to where you can't tell the difference now between artificial intelligence and humans. Here's the one fact, IT leaders, I don't care who you are, you're not going to be able to slow the rate of change of technology and of the enterprise, period. You have one option, and that's to embrace it, or you're not going to survive, right? And so as you start to think about the rate of change of technology, not that technology will just continue to change, but it's actually going to accelerate. So think about that for a moment. Technology's change rate is going to accelerate. And so it's going to be hard to even keep up with these kind of changes that are coming if you're looking at it from a broad spectrum. So you're going to start seeing more compartmentalized and more specialization happening in different and digital kind of being embedded across the entire business. So the only way that I see, especially as we move into 2023, we'll start to see this really start to take effect, probably towards the end of the year. The only way that organizations are going to truly be able to embrace this rate of change is by moving to a more composable business model. Because that's the way that these blocks, these building blocks, if you think of the enterprise as a composable enterprise of building blocks, this is the only way that you're going to be able to modularize everything to have the flexibility and the adaptability. And that's not just across technology. Sure, composable technologies are going to be a huge part of it, which is where I think Digibee plays a huge part in connecting all of these blocks together across the business and in making sure that things are modular. But it's also your business architecture, right? Making sure that that's flexible and resilient. It's also the way that you think in general, composable thinking, right? How do you embrace modularity, autonomy, discovery, right? In the way that you think about approaching problems with your business. And so that if you think about that, where every single area of the business is going to have to start embracing this change, embracing this new way of thinking, and embracing this new business model and architecture, you're going to need to be able to support those connections so that everything can still work seamlessly as one unit, one organization, but still embracing the rate of change to swap parts out and components out. You're not going to be able to have this black box of IT in the future that every single request is going by, because they simply won't be able to be subject matter experts in every piece of technology and change that is happening, or in the latest innovations in thinking and architecture for that line of business. So it only makes more and more sense that the development efforts are going to shift. Not that IT is going away at all. It's just going to shift into these more and more responsibility are going to come into these lines of business, hiring more and more technical people, more and more developers to be able to embrace that change. And the way that these different areas of the business are going to connect, are going to communicate, is by exchanging information and data, because that's what drives personalized experiences. That's what drives the tailored technology that consumers are used to and employees are used to. And so being able to rise to that occasion of whether it's artificial intelligence or reporting and modeling, data modeling and predicting and intelligence, or no matter what the use case is, the data flow is the communication across the composable enterprise. And I think that that's the only way that businesses are going to be able to survive, is if they start to embrace this from a thinking perspective. And we're going to start seeing that in 2023. Right? The only other thing that I'd add there is putting the politics aside of Elon Musk and some of the things that we were saying earlier that's on there, right? Not that that's the point. But he's giving a masterclass right now on execution, right? Because he's executing on things very, very rapidly with even a more limited staff. Companies are going to have to do that same kind of thing, right? It's embracing execution, delivering products much faster, and the interoperability of a composable enterprise gives that, right? And so if we look into the integration space specifically, we're going to start seeing this shift between kind of the citizen integration solutions that are out there that are focused on no code for citizen users, and then the true connection layer that's going to empower complex workflows to allow these Lego blocks of a composable enterprise to interconnect with one another. And the responsibility might still be with IT for the current future, and maybe it always will be. But a lot more dependency at those lines of business levels with their developers. A lot of the responsibility will be shared there. So how do you increase the rate of innovation, increase the ability to connect, but still provide IT with the governance, the control, the visibility that they need to provide scalable, sustainable growth? That really is what a true integration platform will be in the future. And that's why I love that what we're working on, the roadmap that we have, and the goal that we have to be the developer's choice integration platform, because we are going to accomplish that goal of helping people usher in this composable enterprise.
I like that you referenced the pace of change, the rate of change, that things are only going to get more complicated, and that to some extent, everyone will need to be technical, right? That's an interesting piece. The one thing that I would say that maybe we can even end on is, we know that data is powerful in making predictions and modeling out customers and consumers, and that helps to drive decision-making and how we market and how we sell and who we sell to. We also know that Apple changed policies this year that affected how marketers can utilize data, right? We all have to click those little allow buttons when we get to a website. And we know that going forward in 2023, not only will Google have to make adjustments because of individual state changes that are required here in the US, but that will become the norm, where much of this information is going to be locked down. Tam, you said it earlier where you were talking about the importance of data and how AI is currently predicting a lot. Does the absence of information available to anonymize a user, but also paint a picture of what that user looks like, affect a broader scope? Does it put more reliance and a heavy reliability on the data that we do have that is our own? How does that affect platforms like ours that work to connect all of these data sources and pass the data over? Because that's a prediction that's a hot topic right now, just like the economy, that could come into play and we could talk about. So Peter, Tam, Rodrigo, I don't know if there's anything. I saw both Peter and Tam nodding. So I'll start with Peter, shift to Tam, and then Rodrigo.
Yeah, the way I see this is as you mentioned, this is only going to be stricter. This is only going to be people will start to pay more attention to that. And I'm not just saying policies. I'm saying real people. If in the past you would just click yes, 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 and then submit, now you're going to pay attention, especially the new generation, on why are they collecting this data from me? Why do they need that? Why am I answering a form for healthcare that asks me all these different data points? Why, right? And honestly, we didn't do that in the past, right? So people in general, they will be more conscious. And of course, this will revert back in all the productivity chain, including all the companies, everybody, all the third parties will be more strict in how you hire a vendor. There will be a trend in solutions. I've just came across one that was very interesting. It will be a competitive differentiator for you as a company to prove that there is someone really looking into what you're doing and showing that off to anyone that is trying to hire you, right? Because now if you trust what you're doing, why not showcase that? That is a competitive differentiator, right? So all these trends will start to show up and will all increase because it will be imperative to take care. Data breach will be less and less thought as, oh, they had a data breach, poor company. No. You're going to be held accountable, even more accountable than in the past, right? So, for me, that's something that wakes me at night, right? Because, operating a platform like ours, dealing with so much sensitive data, which is our customers' data. We don't know what it is, but we know the importance of it. We know the complexity of it, so we need to treat it accordingly, right? So I believe that's what we're going to see growing.
First, starting on the consumer side, I would say that there's to echo what Peter's saying, there's a lot more awareness on where you're, as an individual, where your data is going and it is, or a lot more concern or care about it. I think there's a lot more understanding now that if not just across technology, there's more understanding now, not just across technologists, but just ordinary average people, that if something is free, then you are the product, right? And understanding that, right? That they're monetizing you. And so, but also that ushers in, do some people really care, depending on what quality of product that they're getting? And so I think that you're going to see a shift towards the value of your data, whether it's your Tesla and you're selling back insights on if it's raining back to a corporation so that they can make more accurate weather predictions coming off of your windshield, and the value of that, so that people are going to be able to monetize their own data in some way to extract value from it. But I also think that while, yes, there are different regulations that are out there from a consumer protection perspective and data privacy, there's also the court of public opinion that nobody wants to be hung in when there's actually when there is a data breach or something on that side, right? So, and that sometimes could be more fatal than just paying some, FCC fine or something like that. So that's kind of on the consumer side. But I think to answer your question, or to answer some of the points that you were making earlier about, marketers, or on that side and how it affects the enterprise, obviously, yes, the kind of that court of public opinion and data security will always be a thing, but it's going to fundamentally shift the way in which data is handled and collected to be able to be efficient. So it's not that marketing on these social media platforms and are going to go away, or tailored experiences are going to go away. It's just going to shift from an easy third-party data access to more first-party data that's going to be used in things like clean data rooms to do join sets, over a Snowflake database, maybe to be able to more tailor your marketing and messaging. So that puts the onus back on the companies to own all the data, versus before it was just deploy some metapixel and, oh, magic is going to happen, right? Because we're going to do it all for you. Now companies, to really get effective marketing strategies, are going to have to own the data themselves and really employ kind of data scientists or data analysts within that, within the marketing org for that specific example. And so I think that means that the way that companies are approaching integrations, approaching their data storage, approaching their data and analytics practices, that's going to become even more of an area of spend and focus. And so making sure that you're getting that data in the right place, in the right format, and then being able to operationalize that data makes it even more important for you to have clean data pipelines, and making sure that the enterprise is connected in that way so that everyone can be more efficient. Because now the onus is more on the corporation to be able to do some of the things versus just outsourcing it to completely to third parties, because that's where the security and the privacy concerns start to really weigh in, is when you're sharing that data across third parties.
I'm trying to look at that from a business perspective, where privacy was not a concern in the beginning, and then we come to a business model transition where private become a concern. So you have the data bureaus and data service, like the 30 parties that you just mentioned, Tam. I thought that was a genius saying, okay, we have these 30 parties that take care of our data, and they have to care about privacy, and suddenly we don't have to do that anymore. We have to own that data, and you have to manage it as the first party on that. So new business models will arise after this transitional ones related to privacy. And a lot of these big techs being failed, like Facebook, like Meta going down, is about these privacy issues they're facing. So it's crazy when they're just. Sometimes I feel that I'm thinking about something in my Instagram post. Instagram shows something that I'm just thinking about. So come on, this can't happen. Don't even mention a word about it. So and yeah, of course that scared me. But sometimes it's helpful, isn't it? Oh,
I think that's the worst part, is that it's scary, but also helpful at the same time, right? You see those jokes where people walk by their husband's phone to they're like mental health therapy or like hair loss or like whatever the topic is, trying to get their phone to sync up with all the data. I mean, I don't know if it's actually true or a joke,
but I believe it can happen.
Exactly. Like, watch out, your wife or your partner is probably looking by and being like, but I think you bring up a good point, right? Is where it's like, there is value to this data, but there's this very delicate line of like creepy and helpful at the same time, where, these tools are getting really, really smart and efficient. Thank you guys for the time and for looking at this.